morning, y'all.
Good morning,
Good
everybody.
morning.
How are y'all doing?
Doing good. How about yourself?
Doing all right. Had a good coffee talk earlier, so good stuff. What about you, Pastor Eric?
I'm doing well. I'm glad it is near the end of the week.
Yes.
And I have a sermon written, and I hope I can take a little time in the morning.
Good.
Very nice.
All right. Well, this is our Reformation episode because our upcoming Sunday is Reformation Sunday, which is we're going to break out of the green season for a little bit and go into some other colors of the church year, which will be kind of fun. So, y'all ready? Talk about Reformation?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Well, for our boys and girls, our first question, if we're going to be throwing this word around, what is Reformation?
So the word means the act of reforming.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully reform means to make better, to change, to make something better. So reformation, we're reforming something to make it in the better image. So wonder what it means.
Mm-hmm.
Reformation Sunday, October 31st, this Sunday. It's also Halloween.
Yeah.
Spooky season.
It is spooky season. But what happened on October 31st, 1517 was the day we commemorate Reformation Day, when Martin Luther, the namesake of our church, who was a pastor, but also a professor, wanted to start people talking about some things that were on his mind. And he wrote these points down. In fact, he had a lot of them. He had 95 of them. He had these 95 ideas, and he wrote them down. And he didn't have Facebook at the time or Instagram. So but he did know where people would see these. And they would be on people at that time. Everybody went to church. And so he knew that if he put it on the church door, people would see it. So as the story goes, he nailed these 95 theses onto the door of his church in Wittenberg, Germany, to get people talking. And boy, did they talk. And that's what Reformation Day starts. It starts this long process of reforming the church.
And I think it's important to still remember it even today, because the church is always going to need to change and adjust and look at itself and say, how are we doing as a church? Are there places where we can do better? And always being open to that. So I think that spirit of reformation, that spirit of change, is always an important thing to keep in mind. Not just continuously doing things just because this is how we always do it, but can we do things better in a way that helps more people hear the gospel, helps more people find a place in church. I think it's always a good thing to keep in mind, for sure. Yeah.
Fun fact: I've been to Wittenberg and to that church, so that's cool.
Yeah,
it is pretty, and it's very neat too, because Martin Luther worked at both places. He had the church here, and just over across the way, not far at all, you can see the university. So both of these places in Wittenberg are this really small town, on the countryside in Germany. Yeah.
Our second question is a bit of a throwback. It comes from Catherine, but it comes from Catherine Giles. And it's from 12-year-old Catherine.
Hi, Mom. I was just wondering, this is for homework. If Martin Luther was, people thought he was just an everyday, what's the word? Monk, and he didn't believe in any. He didn't think this was, they should be Lutheran Yeah. So I was just wondering about that. So yeah. Bye. I love you. Bye.
Well, yeah. I mean, he set out to change the church. That was the purpose of the 95 Theses. Now, did he set out to leave the church and form a separate denomination? No.
Mhm. Right.
You know, that's exactly right. And it's a little tricky because we Lutherans look each year and mark the Reformation in a big way. But I think we have to be careful not to call it a celebration, because it's not, because what happened at this point was a fracture in the church. The church split apart.
Mhm.
So if it hadn't happened, then Lutherans wouldn't be here. So a commemoration or remembering the history is very important. But to call it really a celebration is not great. I mean, we're happy that Martin Luther made these changes, these reforms in the church. But what we're trying to do now is bring everybody back together all these 504 years later. We're trying to bring people back together. So that's part of Reformation too, reforming so that we can all be a unified church again.
All right. So finally, our last question: what are ways that we mark Reformation? That can be any way, even some fun ways. What are ways that we mark Reformation? So what are some things our boys and girls are going to see or hear?
Well, they're going to hear, I'll bet they're going to hear "A Mighty Fortress is Our God."
Mhm.
I'll bet they will.
Oh, yeah, they will.
I'll bet Jason will play the organ very loudly that day. What else? What might they see?
We wear a lot of red.
Yes.
We wear red.
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
We wear red stoles and we have red paraments on the altar and red banner, and maybe people will wear red clothes. We usually wear our red shoes that day. Yeah.
Yeah. And I, just to stab at it, but often red, because we also wear red on Pentecost. Red is a color that's often tied to the Holy Spirit in the church, that we use that color to represent, the fire of the Holy Spirit. And so I like that we use red because it's a reminder that God is in the midst of Reformation. God's in the middle of all of that. So when we are, called to look at ourselves and called to think about where we're supposed to go going forward, don't forget that God is at the center and at the heart of the changes that we are called to make, that the Holy Spirit is with us in those changes.
That's right.
Yeah.
And those changes we make over time, as you said earlier, Pastor, they aren't necessarily bad things. The church has for 2,000 years developed and evolved and changed to meet a changing world. When Luther was pastor, churches didn't have pews. People just stood and gathered. And church was longer than most of the services were longer. So people just had to stand for all that time. So one of the things we've changed is we have pews in churches. And the other is that we have air conditioning in churches. I just 15 years ago, my internship church in Connecticut, it was a very wealthy church, but the church did not have air conditioning in the nave. And it gets hot in Connecticut in July.
Yeah.
So, and all that. So, yeah.
Or another good change would be, in Luther's time, the services at churches were only in Latin, and the people in Germany just didn't, unless they were very well educated, most people didn't understand Latin. They just went to church and listened to a language that they didn't understand. So could you imagine coming to church on Sunday and hearing a language you don't know, and you just don't know what's being said? So a good change was that services in Germany were then put into the language of the people. So for us, the fact that we have our services in English, which is a language we understand, is a very good thing. So people can hear the gospel in a language they understand. And well, we look forward to seeing all our boys and girls for Reformation Sunday. And bring your red out. Wear red if you've got it, and celebrate with us.
Right.
All
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Happy Reformation, y'all.
All right. Be well.
Well, everyone.